Yeah, there's still a few first edition boxes out there in the wild. There's a few local game stores that have it. And I'm pretty sure most of them are probably gone by now, but they're still there in the wild, either through a local game store or by somebody who's selling a sealed copy. So look at that, metazoo comic. I like how there's the God. There's like so many characters. We got Bird, Metal Man, um, the Nango, the Cumber Dragon, Sinkhole Sam, the Jackrabbit, the Little Green Man or whatever alien. We got Dingbell. That's my burr right there. We got the little Mothman, like authentic, the little Mothman where the seal of approval would be. Oh hey John, uh, Sean, John Shalin, 1.0 and 1.5 are two different sets. Thank you for letting me know that. I thought that too. I thought that too because they're you know the number that must mean that it's a different set. It's not like the same print run. It's a different set. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. I mean, I knew that they are. I just did not buy it since I thought it was a different set. Um, that is what I understood. And nice cover. Yeah, thank you again, John, for confirming that with me because I didn't know honestly. And then we got Mothman, Bigfoot, Flatwood Monster, uh, Loveland Frogman, Chupacabra, and then we got Sam Sinclair, the main character. Magic is real. Magic is everywhere. There's a little QR code right there. And Poncho did the art for this. You know, Poncho did a really good job on the artwork. And so, MetaZoo, the only TCG where your surroundings matter. MetaZoo Cryptic Nation is a cryptic themed TCG for 2 to 6 players. Players assume the roles of casters. Their deck represents spellbooks of which they can cast powerful spell, summon ancient artifacts, and form contract with beloved cryptids to aid them in the arena. Be wary of your surroundings though. The environment around the arena has the potential to strengthen your beast or even weaken your spells. With the veils between the worlds and all things magical mysteriously torn, it is up to you to become a powerful enough caster to fight the menace of Indrid Cold and his powerful cryptics, or join their ranks. I can join the bad guys. Awesome. Will you form contract with the beloved, the benevolent Bigfoot and fearsome critters to protect the forest, or embrace the flying catastrophe of the Mothman? The choice is yours in MetaZoo Cryptic Nation. Mothman out of the boys. Breaking out of Mothman breaking out of the box. Yeah. Let's see. Digimon and MetaZoo both more complicated than Flesh and Blood in my perception. One reason why I really like Flesh and Blood. Yes, I can agree with that. Flesh and Blood was really easy to understand, especially from what my coworker explained to me. Um, you know, you do your hand size is based off your character's initiative or something like that. Oh, like he's breaking out of that box right there. Yeah, he is. I feel like he would be more center in that box, but you know it's fine. I like the Mothman here. He's like swooping down. But yeah, that was a good intro for MetaZoo. A Man from the Shadows. It was 3 a.m. November 15, 1966, on the road, like many others in the region. A cold air of a later fall was prevalence, and the leaves were just beginning to turn color in earnest. Although all throughout at this hour, the witching hours, the only colors that littered the ground were gray and black and soft glow of a small town not too far off in the distance, uh, torching them out. At this hour, the witching hour, shadows flooded every square inch of the road. From these shadows, the shape of men began to emerge. To any average bystanders, this man enveloped in the shadows would be just out of sight. But then, click click, off his dress shoes on the asphalt could still be clearly heard throughout the crisp air. To the keen observer, the trees and bushes on either side of the roads were filled with creatures sitting and watching and waiting. These observing eyes only briefly noticeable to the normal person from the corner of their own held both intelligence and fear. For they knew this man and what his arrival meant. The man from the shadow walked several paces and stopped, and the tree on either side of the road and the air itself seems to stop with them. Invisible to most, but most likely felt down the spine of every living creature with 10-mile radiance. An unnaturally large smile pierced across the man's face. His eyes begin to glow that in no way illuminate the shadows before him. In fact, the shadows themselves seemed to grow darker. They appeared instead of two ghostlin suspended just 6 or 7 feet above the road, looking at the guide, the gilded on-wheeled driver, to their doom. Slowly but confident, as through he had all the time in the world, the man raised an arm to the fallen sky and peered into the stars from between the outstretched fingers. With a voice like the leaves that trembles and scrapes across the pavement at his feet, the man spoke through sharp teeth. The same stars, not so long then, roughly 1,000 years. The space immediately around the man air then appears to flex and bend for a brief moment, and the air just above him, overstretched hands ripped as though there was a fine film resting on top of it, oily and slick to the touch, and distorting the brilliance of the stars he was looking at. Then a chuckle that could wither spring's flowers. I think it's almost time. The veil is thinning here. Wouldn't you agree, old friend? The man said. The man's ghost-lit eye shifted from the stars above to look at two red glowing orbs the size of car headlights resting on top of a large tree on the side of the road. These red eyes held in certain wicked intelligence, but no sign of fear present in the other observed closer to the ground. Spilling from those eyes were heavy shadows extending to the road outwards into the sky like two colossal wings. Oh wow, like look at that art. Like, so I guess we got Cold right up in there, and he's like filling the air, trying to break through the veil. And then we can see our boy Mothman right there on top of the trees, kind of like observing him, protecting him from afar. That's really cool. Really good stuff. Injured Cold, unnaturally large smile, peels back even further. Tell me what you see, old friend. Tell me the future. Tell me what you see, and I will do my great work. The man from the shadow continued down the road, skipping occasionally as he passed the battered ground road that says, "Welcome to Point Pleasance." The man from the shadow begins to whisper a merry tune. If you ever watch a baseball game from a distance, maybe you could only afford one of those bleeders. The speed of sound is very much on display. The sight of the batter crackling of the pitch ball always reach you slightly before the matching crackling sounds. The symbolism here is pretty on the nose, but no less worthy, pointing out the further away you are from something, the harder it is to make out the details, to see how everything is connected. And that was the case on one Saturday morning at 10 a.m. 10:04 a.m. During the mid-morning heat, one could only experience the East Coast in August. To many satellites that were taking pictures from afar, and to many more analyzing that would try to make sense of the scale of the catastrophe. All that was seen was the appearance of the cryptics, codename Mothman, above a large league baseball game at Point Pleasant, West Virginia, followed by an exploding large enough to shatter the windows around 100 miles radius. There is no mean a unique event for that morning, a morning plagued by similar unexpected and supernatural events that only those that survive them and survive them up closely could speak of its true story. Oh. Um, and this was the case on that particular Saturday morning, 10:04 a.m., where the whale that was put onto place over 10,000 years ago finally shattered. So we can see that there's a satellite that's broken in space, and we can make the Great White North in the distance as well. Some of the lakes. That's pretty cool. Man, the story is really good. The story is really good. I am in love with this story. The middle school bleachers were littered with them. Well wanted signs were somewhat an ancient method of information the general public about a threat. Point Pleasant was still small enough town to warn the extra measures. The figure on the side was more shadow than man, but no one has ever gotten a good look of his face. All that was known was that he had appeared in town at hours and places he should not have, and people were afraid. No one paid these posters any heed, though, at least not right at the moment. Bater Middle High Mothman was currently in the middle of delivering physical punishment to the out-of-country dragon of Cumberland Middle School, and tensions were high. Oh, that's pretty cool. They kind of have like middle school base. The school's based off the cryptics. We got Middle High Mothman and Cumberland Middle School. To many laymen, it appears as though the Mothman has risen in the national ranks of middle school baseball amongst almost by magic. However, to those watching more carefully, they recently fame could be explained entirely by the last-minute recruitment of 8-year-old Sam Sinclair and Adam Arkham. In comparison to many of the other players, many 4 to 6 year older than them, Sam and Adam were special in the way that they are difficult to put a finger on. Sam knew, however, just how, in which way he and Adams were special. The two 8-year-olds had what Sam described to himself as intuition. Because describing their abilities as power sounds almost too cliches even to their pretense sensibility. These intuition took separate but equally useful forms, and each aided their ability to dominate baseball in a different way. Sam intuition gave him the ability to almost see the different direction the ball may have taken before it even took flight. The clearest direction was most often not the direction it took. Adam took the form of feeling how the opponent players are going to act, while possibly more potent. Adam intuition was clearly more abstract and therefore difficult to use, but he had a fine-tuned but he has fine-tuned it to such a degree that he often did better on the field than Sam. These abilities and mysteries of their origins were often discussed between the two childhood friends, and they kept a close gauge secretly. This kept it a closely guarded secret in the way only the innocents can. For Sam and Adam, not to not only recognize their intuition, but also actively train and use them was apparently unprecedented. And use it they did. Sam had just secured a lead in the previous inning, a lead in the previous inning with a home run that was at that point par for the course of every time he stepped up to bat. Ooh. It was expected that one of the outfielders from the opposite team actually pulled off his phone to check his message when Sam tensed up. Now in the final inning of the game with one out, the opposing team had their fastest runner, a boy named Chris, on second base. Andam intuition was screaming that he would try to steal the third split second before the pitch was made. Adam and Sam locked eyes as the ball flew and Chris rocketed from second. Sam Glaze fitted to an area in the outfield where he knew the ball would go. Adam pivoted his left foot and headed directly at the spot before before the bat ever met the ball. A mere 6 seconds later, and the game was won. Oh, there's a picture of Sam and Adam. Very nice. I like that. The Belcher decorated with a bleacher decorated with Enderal Code silhouette bent as parents launched themselves into the field to celebrate the Mothman winning the Tri-County Championships for the first time is a living memory. Sam and Adam smiled at each other through the sea of parents' arms and gloves and bats being discarded on the field by the defeated Dragons. It's hard to fathom what amazing stories those two would have embarked on had they opportunity to live the way it should have been lived. It's hard to fathom what the world would have been had the veil not shattered, but shatter it did. Through smells of victories and through pouting faces of defeat, one sound emerged that toned through everything else. The sound seemed to come from afar and nearly all at once. In many ways, the sound comes from within. The sound was unlike the sound of metal tearing, and even though only sounded for 3 seconds, it felt like hours to Sam. The sound finally stopped, and it was followed by what would be described by many as almost an unnatural silence. Then, after 10 seconds of shock, the screaming begins. Oh no. Oh no, no. Look at that. People burning, lights coming their eyes, people merging or splitting into two people. That's insane. Man. Mike, you did a really good job on this. Like, I am invested. Miss Bergen, the local librarian who has always brought chili dogs to every Little League match, described her own son dying by a drunk driver nearly 3 years ago. Had at some point the last minute caught on fire. Drake Ferguson, the pitcher of the Dragons, stood dumbstruck over what appeared to be misshapen bodies of his parents. The moments before was consoling him on the loss of the game. Chris Gold, who a mere 2 minutes ago tried to steal the second base, yielded in agony as his eyes turned to what could be described as the 4th of July sparklers. And so, for every 10 person on the field, an affection of some sort was changing their bodies, and it was somehow connected to the sound that we all heard. the sound that they had all felt. And then you can see the earth, and then sort of like a beam of colors, a white beam. No kids allowed. Definitely no kids allowed in this story. Man, people dying, people having their eyes burned out, parents combining into one entity. This is insane. Oh my god, I love it. Um, Through all this, Sam and Adam have maintained a locked gaze, and then someone turned off the sun. No, that wasn't quite right, although the effect was much the same, more than anything else, more than all the chaos that have preceded that moment. A shadow cast upon the field, and the thing casting it was enough for Sam and Adam to look up. It's Mothman. Kids dying canceled. Oh no, metazoo's gonna get canceled because kids are dead. Kids are dead. I reported it already. This will be banned in American soon. It's only a matter of minutes. Yeah, as long as you don't post it on Twitter. It was a monster. It had black wings. It pierced in the cold blackness, two colder red eyes, the same size as the sun that covered, and just as bright. They searched the field and found Sam's eyes, and then a white light. Sam was 12 years old and late for school. He jumped down the living room stairs 2 steps at a time, all in training to finally woke up the courage to do 3 times to do 3 at a time. Maybe next week a rabbit foot keychains attached to Sam's backpack bounced along him. Adam was already at school and made a point of waking up at 5 in the morning in order to fit some training of his own before the first bell. Sam bolted through the kitchen, grabbed a misshaped pastry that M no doubt intended to be shaped like a cryptid, but might as well have been a duck. M was a man who adopted both Sam and Adam after the event of summer of 2021, and he was magic. Only hours after the veil shattered and the world descended to chaos, M appeared in the town from the northeast walk along U.S. Route 35 and seemed without a care of the world. M stood nearly 6 feet 5 inches and was nothing but nuts and reeling muscles like an old tree branch that has weathered too many storms but was all the stronger for it. He was old, but the type of old that was hard to pinpoint. He has gray hair and age spots that fiercely contrast by the shape of his blue eyes and unnatural smooth skin. All the more reason why he looks so ridiculous in an apron. And with all that magic, you still can't bake a cryptic croissant without burning it. Oh, a cryptic croissant. Now I'm going to have to make one of those. That's really odd way of saying thank you, Sam. Now get to school, M shouted as dishes danced across. Oh, man. Only a matter of minutes unless Mothman saved the day. I don't know. They cut it off pretty fast. I didn't know if Mothman was the one that saved Sam and Adam. Maybe M is the Mothman. M, with all the magic, you can still bake a cryptic... wait, what? M, with all that magic, you still can't bake a cryptic croissant without burning it. And with all that magic, you saw ways to say thank you and I'm back to school. That's a really odd way of saying thank you, Sam. Now go to school, M shouted as dishes danced across the kitchen, cleaning themselves or attempting to. Sam wasn't particularly a huge fan of M using magic, but he wouldn't say no to a hot, if slightly singed breakfast. Huh, that's an interesting typo. And with all that magic, you can't bake a cryptic croissant without burning it. And that's an odd way of saying thank you, Sam. Now go to school is printed twice. Really interesting. That's a good typo. Every day on his way to school, Sam passed some fences that bordered Miss Chap's gardens, and every day Sam tried to spot the difference that decorates it. Every day the fence has a different poster, an ad, and graffiti on it, as it was to reflect the new world that they live in. So let's see. Let's look at that. They have the plates cleaning themselves. That's really cool concept. Then we have the fence wall that is there. We got the M. We trade more than them. Gold for electronic scraps. New corruption alert. Uh, you emotionally affected by the veil? You're not alone. Call 800-98. End of the what is it? Peril? We got scrap, get gold. Cryptic radio. Know your monster with a little radio sign. M reader new. Help wanted. Have you seen him? Defend yourself, cryptic. We got a monster guide. And then we got a metazoologist exams. Oh, I love the posters. There's so many cool, unique things about it. All right, the next page. Man, there's still so many pages. I should have read this first, but I'll probably reread it without messing up the words and put them on YouTube. But Sam was a collector, a specifically a collector of all things cryptid. So if anything was easily removable or portable to his backpack, he made mental notes to do his public duty and reduce littering on his way back home. Just at the entry of school, Sam spotted Adam at the center of the group of the other students, some as old as 18. Adam stood straight with his left arm perpendicular to his body and his spellbook in his right hand. At his feet was a terrifying jackalope, was magically bound by the ground as a impractical signal glow with a soft blue hue. And so you see, you actually don't need a cryptic corporation to form a contract with it. All you need to do is to incapacitate it, Adam explained to the group of fans with many oohs and ahs. Of course, the SIG is just a placeholder. I hear that the most powerful casters can form contracts with willpower alone, Adam said as he extended his hand with a flourish and snapped his fingers, producing a brief showering of mid-color sparks to many more ahs and oohs much louder than before. Adam then made the jackalope hop onto its hind leg and dance, much to the merriment of those surrounding him. Searing pains and terror was apparent in the jackalope eyes. Sam did not need to say anything, and though their strange connection made it all stronger since the veil shattered, Adam knew that the time has ended for the demonstration, and with a snap of his spellbook, the signal disappeared and the jackalope hopped off into the forest, not before goring one of the senior prize dog champion wheels. Oh. The crowd disappeared, making eye contact with Sam and shooting daggers at him, knowing that he was somehow the cause of the abstract end of the morning fun, like he always was. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of picking on Sam. My boy Sam did not do anything wrong. I feel like Adam's in the wrong for bullying the rabbit. As the sea of students make their way to the entry of the school before the first bell, Adam caught up with Sam with a huff. With a little too much excitement, Adam said, "Sam, I get it. You don't like magic, and you especially don't like it when I use it on a beastie. But I'm really good at it, and you could be too if you just trained a little." A brief pause for effect. And then Sam responded, "It's bad, Adam. It killed our parents and everyone we knew, but it didn't kill us. And you just used it like it was nothing. Like there's nothing wrong with it." "Sam, the magic is just magic. It's no big deal. I've created pretty sparkles and some cells that are actually really cool, and in fact, I think I found a new way to. I found how to some stuff I don't think even M knows how to do." Oh, that was a tongue twister for me. "Besides, people agree that beasties are to blame for the—" "Adam, just stop, please. We're gonna be late," Sam interrupted. Adam stopped in the hallway they have entered moments before to look at Sam back as he walked away, and the sea of students parted before him. Oh. Oh, he does not. So Sam does not like being mean to the beasties. Sam was 16 years old, and he had a bloody lip outside the fence. He had a bloody lip outside the fence of Miss Chapel Garden. Above him, a poster of a heroes battling the latest artist rendition of a mystical pizza bird exploding in full color. Heroes was Unicity, newly established and sainted hero, but Sam saw he looks and power were more than a cheap knockoff of Superman. That was a propaganda goon in UC. We're going for, though. A blow to the back of Sam's head made his own vision explode in full color. Sam was unsure whether the blow came from one of the three seniors that surrounded him, spellbook open and at the ready, or rather a mean-looking river dino that they have contracted. Not that it mattered. Oh wow, this is such a good book. Man, I'm having a lot of fun with this book. Every day for the past several months, the same three would catch Sam on his way to school and give him what they believe to be well-deserved beating. And every day, Sam took it without complaints. He knew all he had to do was wake up early, perhaps even earlier than Adam, and the beating would stop in a matter of inconvenience to his bullies. But in Sam's mind, that would be tantrament of admitting defeat. "Come on, cast your spell, you freak," said Adam with a sneer, not made any better with his lip hair. "You know, Adam, fix that axe wound on your face. Wouldn't need a slightly advanced cosmetic spell, or you can't cast those. Not enough juice in the tank," Sam blubbered through his own split face. Sam always gave it back in his own way, and the spell he cast were often white-hot clutteries. Sam knew Adam lacked the magic necessary to fix his hair lip, and by proxy, Sam knew everyone in Adam's family lacked the skill necessary as well. Same. Thank you, Mott. Adam eye widened and his pupil sharpened to the point the river dino face twitched in unison, and with a great leap, it pounced onto Sam's chest, digging its claw into its white flesh as it did so. It was only the size and weight of the medium-sized dog, but the momentum it carried threw Sam onto the asphalt was a wet smack. As pain exploded into Sam's body, it from 1,000 different places. All he could do was focus on a singular point in the river dino forehead. It was Adam's signal, burning deep red into its flesh and making the one responsible for his pain impossible to deny. This was the downfall of contracting a beastie for those of us with criminal inclination. It always left a mark of the caster somewhere. Sam wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in Unity City, perhaps the darkest basement where only mushrooms and secrets grow. A database of caster signal were kept on files as fingerprint systems, indicating many dark casters have taken up the habits of carving nonsense signal onto whatever BC they contracted to remove any culpability. And not a few people have been framed for crimes they did not commit as a result. Easy, Adam. You're going to kill him, the leader of the merry band, Sturfin said with his all too easy chuckle. Sturfin was a hulking bull Bergarni, who has hit puberty perhaps a little too soon, and he had also once been Sam's friend before the shattering of the veil. That's it. Sam remembered Sternfan once telling him that Bulgari was really well known for curling, then struck Sam as odd at the time as the entire country would be known for its signal weightlifting exercise. But there was certainly strange things in the world, especially now. Sternfin knew Sam's struggling body and put a hand on River Dino's snout, muffling its snare. You know you sure do talk a lot of shit for someone who doesn't use magic, Sam. Every morning we come here to educate you, but every morning you just get stupider and stupider, Sirfan says, with a type of confidence condensation that almost came off as sympathy. We just want you to cast one little spell. We know you can do it. You have such a hard-on for these beasties that killed our friends and family, but something against using magic. Help me understand. Surfing propped his spellbook to his knees and flipped to a bookmark page. A moment of concentration, and then a tiny flare wisp the size of a lit candle flame appeared at the tip of Sam's nose. Sam muffled his own cries. After all, Miss Trapple was his next-door neighbor, and Sam made every effort to hide his daily torment from his family. His first stop after the morning beating was always a magical emergency clinic, MEC, just outside of his school that specialized in superficial cuts, bruises, burns, often magical in nature. Wow, these guys are fucked up to Sam. Man, Sam. Like, I understand that you don't want to use magic to hurt these guys, but like, throw some fist ups. Throw your cuffs ups. Give them a beating. If you won't use magic, use might. And why were these kids so cruel? Cruel in a way we all experience in our youth, but soon forgotten. Cruel in a way that only children can be. Sam could use magic, yes, but he chose not to. This seemed as not only odd behavior, but it was verge of sacrilege in the New World Order. It wasn't helped by the fact that everyone in town knew that Sam and Adam were the only survivors of that fated baseball game 8 years ago, where many of his own friends and family had perished. Sure, millions of people died that day all around the world, but the fact that they were sole survivors of a particular location indicated rubbed the local people the wrong way, and Sam was still paying for it gladly. And while most of the world has learned to adapt to the reality of cryptic nation, as the U.S. has become known to be called, the resident of Point Pleasant never truly understand why Adam loved cryptic the way he did. The cruelty wasn't limited to the town children. The adult actively, but most subtly and perhaps unknowingly, participates as well. the C on the exam instead of a earnest B, stale bread instead of fresh batch when he went to Piggy Wiggy on 3rd Street, and bus doors that closed just a little too soon as Sam ran up to catch them. Cruelty by 1,000 cuts. By such constantly slow burn of cruelty was enough to leave any child feeling unloved. Of course, no such cruelty met Adam, the star child of Point Pleasant. He survived 8 years ago and was overlooked by. Of course, no such cruelty met Adam, the star child of Point Pleasant. His survival 8 years ago was overlooked by his adoring fans, children, teens, and adults alike. After all, who could hate the wonder kind of crushing every standardized test thrown at him, was the captain of at least 3 different sports, and could cast magic that left even most adept adult casters in awe. Or perhaps it was simply afraid of him, because if you could only choose one word to describe Adam, most people would choose powerful. Just as the river dino begins digging its claw a little too deeply into Sam's chest, just as Sam's ability to control his screaming disappeared, the river dino began to float in the air, though it was underwater waltz. In a panic, it briefly tried to find purchase in Sam's flesh, and Sam left out the first scream of the morning. A shadow was cast on Sam, and all 3 bullies took a step back before they could catch themselves. Adam was not a large teen by any means. In fact, in comparison to the hormone-ridden bullies that stood before him, you might even describe him as frail. But there was gravity in the way of Adam held himself that was undeniably striking. Jet black hair, glasses a little too reminiscent of Harry Potter to be entirely an accident, and a casual suit and a red tie that had once earned him the attention of the bullies before they learned better, all added to the effect. The bully's surprise wasn't unwanted either, as was a known fact that since the veil shattered, Adam had always arrived several hours early to school. It was his thing. What he was doing all the way back home only 30 minutes before the first bell has some even more confused than Sternfin and his merry crew. Oh crap, squealed Adam in the pinch, as Sam has never heard before. Sternfin, the most experienced and sure of the crew, slid back and put some distance between him and the figure that seemed appeared out of nowhere. Don't be panzers, get him before he has a chance to pull out his spellbook, roasting war Sternfin while rapidly flipping the pages of his own, so hard to almost tore. Sam was distracted by the river drowning mid-air above him, now floating a solid 25 feet in the air like the world's most grotesque balloon animal. That he almost forgot to cover his face, and the veil of preparation of the chaos was about to ensure. Automata control of so-called veil links is so-called casters. It is in particular to understand motion neural and aura onyx. Okay, cool. So abstract. The most abstract papers seek to unveil the mystery of shattered polish. One problem remained unsolved. How exactly is this so-called magic controlled by casters used to become known as the Veil Link? In this paper, we submitted a mathematical proof showing the control of magic is facultated through the autonomous biology process, similar to the process of motion neural interaction with onyx. Oh my god, these are some fucking science words that I can't. Well, words. But let's see, there's some new art there. We can see Sam diving out of the way. And we can see Adam in the distance. Yeah, it was the Harry Potter hair, the red tie, the red shirt, the white shirts, and then the bullies trying to cast lightning, a fireball, and summon a beastie. Wow, that's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy books. You actually have some skill, Adam. Wait, did I miss the page? Yeah, I missed the page. Wow, I missed the page. All three bully spellbooks open and bookmarked took position in front of Adam, who hasn't even moved since he first appeared. In fact, his hands were still in his pockets. A brief flash, and then a ball of fire the size of a baseball appeared in front of Seraphine and hurling towards Adam. A silver snake with wings appeared as the third bully spellbook and darted in the same direction in a single motion. Adam broke his contract with the waltzing river dino, casting it seems to flicker out of existence and produce a thin whip of pure blue lightning that was sent crackling towards Sam prostate form. Still no motion from Adam, but Sam felt pressure almost extended from where Adam was standing, and though the very air itself was bending while Adam did not move, Sam felt as though Adam Will was a tangible force flowing around him like a current. The fireball, mere 3 feet of making an impact, expanded in size until it became so thin it disappeared with a poof. The winged silver snake screeched before it tied itself in a knot and exploded in a flash, and the lightning whip, which almost certainly would have blown a golf-sized hole in Sam's backpack, it stopped mid-flight and hung suspended in the air as though someone has taken a picture of the lightning bolt right before it struck a tree. Oh, cool, cool. You actually have some skill, Adam. Try and use it on someone other than my brother, Adam said almost nonchalantly, or force on cosmetics, or focus on his cosmetics. Sam sought bravely from his curled up ball. With the magic from their spell dissipating into the air like steam, the bullies stood stunned as though they themselves had been struck by the blue lightning. They know that Adam was skilled, but not to cast a powerful defensive spell without a spellbook, let alone move a muscle. That was enough to make everyone run, and run they did. Whew, wow, damn, Adam is no joke. Sam attempted to slowly raise himself off the ground, grunting with the effort, though clenched teeth said, "What exactly are you doing here, Adam?" And not that I'm. Before seeing out of nowhere, Rose appeared by his side. "Sam, these cuts are horrible. Please don't move." Rose immediately began to apply medical medicine, a soft green hue spilling forth from her fingertip like murky water to gently caress Sam's wound. Sam's cheeks turned to a rose. Adam was surprised, sure being saved by Adam, and especially by magic, was embarrassing. All of that combined with the fact that it happened in front of Rose, his Rose, it was enough to turn the rose that was formed on Sam's cheek into a rose blush. Okay, so what exactly happened? You two are always at school by now, Sam's spluttered. "Sam, how long has this been happening?" "Certainly not," Rose began. "Doesn't matter. I can take care of him. I can take care of himself, Sam. We need to talk." Adam was particular beyond particular, and he was certainly not stupid. He knew that the embarrassment Sam must have been feeling at the exact moment, and he knew that best thing to do was to move on. Besides, he clearly had something important to say. At that moment, M exits the house carrying two very heavily and well-loved suitcase to the curb. Uh-oh. I don't know. It's like the whole. I'm getting the feeling that it's like the whole Pokemon thing. When you're 10-year old, your parents will kick you out to go on a Pokemon journey. And you can see, I guess, M with his suitcase walking down the stairs. Who? Oh, you're already here. What the? Sam getting off the ground. You're ruining your good school clothes. Spells can only rebind fabric so many times. Clearly M knew something had happened, but maybe he figured that the drama that had unfolded moments before was something that should remain in the realms of the teenage that stood before him. Making a vex sound at the interruption, Adam always did see M as a bit goofy, despite M's immense magical power. Adam continued, "Look, Sam. When Rose and I go to school this morning, our daily casting exercise was interrupted by the recruiting of by a recruiter of Quimberley." Sam's eyes widened, and to be completely honest, Adam did as well, as he was repeating what still struck him as extraordinary. Quimbley was the state-sanctioned college of magic lovers in the Unity City. It was basically the real world version of Hogwarts, and was based off the husk of Georgetown University campus, which has been burned down in the attack immediately followed by the shattering of the veil. Not surprisingly, some high potential casters were located in and around what was once DC, so when the veil shattered, the level of destruction was tremendous. But then again, so was the reconstruction effort that followed. "I don't understand. Don't you have to be 18 to go to college?" Sam asked. "Not necessary. In fact, I know quite a few casters younger than the three of you who are already attending Cumberley," interjected M with a sly smile. "So what?" Sam continued. "The recruiter showed up and you leave the same day. What the hell is that?" Adam avents his eyes from Sam in a way that was uncharacteristically sheepish. Sam immediately came to the correct conclusion. "You've known about this for a while. The three of you have, without telling me. You guys were just going to leave me," Sam said, with not a little despair in his voice. How Adam has hidden this from Sam, giving their connection, would be a mystery that haunts Sam for months. "Sam, it's Kimberly. It's like Hogwarts began." "I know what it is. Jesus, I guess that makes me the dorsal of the family." Sam's cheeks bloomed rose once again as he realized just how vulnerable his anger at the situation made him, and what it exposed about him. A very, very different love from both Rose and Adam. In this instance, he should have cared less about the self-image he was cultivating for Rose, a girl he wouldn't see for many years, but teenage hormones was a strange thing. A long pause, and without missing a beat, and just as cheery as ever, M softly spoke in a way that carried through the air furthermore than it should have. "Let's go then. We'll be late. Time to say your goodbyes, Adam," who has turned with a jolt at the sound of the whisper, turned back in a hurry to explain what had happened to Sam in more details. Timing of being late be damned. But Sam already turned the corner down the block, running faster than he ever had before. Oh man, family drama. That's not good. Sam was 18, and he was a week away from graduating high school. He sat in his room roughly 2 a.m. preparing his tools to leave through his bedroom window. It has been 2 years since Rose and Adam left him, left his family, and not all his fear was of loneliness has come true. Adam never wrote a single letter to Sam, and vice versa. But Sam had spied Adam handwork. Almost never wrote a single letter to Sam, and vice versa. But Sam had spied Adam handwriting in more than one piece of paper that M has been reading throughout the years. Of course, at second glance, the handwriting would always change, accompanied by the sly smile M always found of showing. Oh no, is Adam just sending M letters and not his friend Sam? No, I feel sorry. I feel so bad for Sam now. I feel sad for Sam. We need more justice for Sam. Rose was a different matter entirely. While Sam wouldn't call them love letters, their correspondence could have filled an entire desk drawer, and it did. In the years since she left, Sam has gotten to know Rose better as he had when they were sitting next to each other for hours each day. The level of connection made the disappearance of Adam from Sam world easier to manage. A bit of pieces of information about Adam has been able to glean from Rose's letter pointed to the fact that both were considered prodigies, even amongst Quimbley prodigies. Anything more was shrouded in mysteries. In the way only the young can, when summer stretched for eternity and a year is all is needed to become a new person, Sam moved on to the fact that his two best friends have left him in a small town to go on an adventure. The charms between the 16-year-old and 18-year-old is hard to fathom. One thing that had no change was Sam's love for all things cryptids. He had some point in the past 2 years upgraded his petty thief of the local upholstery industry to full cryptic hunting. Now Sam's definition of cryptic hunting was perhaps more innocent than you might think. Unlike many of the casters looking to expand the power of the spellbooks or the cryptid produced specially looking to research a new facial cream, Sam merely liked to take photos for his personal collection. Of course, he had the many posters of superstars like Bigfoot, Mothman, Jersey Devils that paper his bedroom walls. However, Sam made every effort to take pictures of more obscene cryptids like the vicious breeds of devil dogs that recently moved to the outskirts of town. These were his true pride and joy, despite no one being interested in branding the new lines of toys or toothpaste based on them. Gadget and Gizmo, various states of disrepair littered the room like a museum from the 1980s, and a tribute to the fact that Sam relied on the technology more than magic. It was hard to get anything more advanced than analog and running these days, but Sam found himself to be quite a technological whiz. Sam picked up a vintage Zen E from the Soviet eras that he had recently refurbished, for whatever reason captured paranormal activities perfectly, and zipped up his Jansport backpack. Ooh, God, this is such a good read. Like, so very interesting. It's nothing. It's. I haven't really read anything like this, and the way Mike has written this so far has been very interesting, very eye-opening, and very unique. Sam has recently found himself sneaking out of his bedroom window and scaling the gutters in order to investigate the puzzling developments. The cloak and dagger was necessarily born from the fact that Sam wasn't allowed past dusk. Unless, of course, he trained how unless, of course, he trained how to cast with M, something Sam still stubbornly refused to do. The puzzling development was that the level of spirits activity on the outskirts of Point Pleasant has multiplied tenfold in the past 2 weeks. Now, M and the other local casters have put up a barrier along Point Pleasant that prevents spirits and the most powerful cryptics from entering the city's limits. And these barriers were powerful. Many towns were not so lucky, and cities that were built on the burned corpse of some million people. The Shattered of the Veil released armies of spirits into the world, and it was almost impossible to what's that word? Impossible to exorcise, exorcist. As a result, many large cities was abandoned, and even smaller towns required powerful casters to create powerful countermeasures. The rest of the U.S. population resorted to the nomadic lifestyle, moving from place to places until too many friends and loved ones died, making the presence of spirits once again unbearable. Wow, that's crazy. Being separated, pretty much the lack of communications between cities and towns again, just because these powerful cryptics or spirits are now in the world causing chaos. Point Pleasant was not the exception, and following the Shattering of the Veil and the resulting explosion, that was certainly enough spirits wandering around town to make life less than comfortable. However, with the help of M, who handles the awakening of his powers almost suspectingly well, the small town of Point Pleasant was had successfully installed a magical barrier only 3 days after the veil shattering. In the months following, many of the surviving residents would visit the barrier that bordered the town in an attempt to see what could be spotted of loved ones in the crowds of spirits. The particular led to one too many suicide and attempts to improperly cross the barrier. Only 6 months after the veil shattering, the council of casters created by M cast a series of spells to remove spirit faces and obstruct their voices. The spirit passed once again into the backgrounds of daily life, even present, but more like features of the town landscape than some people can actively worry about. But something has changed. More and more spirits have appeared at the barrier for the past several weeks, but that wasn't most troubling. What was troubling was the fact that some of these spirits have crossed the barriers and would be found wandering the forest of Point Pleasant. When Sam probed M potentially causing the potential cost of this, especially since M himself had put up the barrier in place, M responded with a textbook explanation. Sam, all barriers are the veils themselves, and there are many types of veil. These veils usually meant to obscure something or keep something out or outright remove it from what we define as existing. In fact, the ability for a caster to form a contract with a cryptic and summon it and dismiss it, as well as done by enveloping a compact veil that stores in the spellbooks. But Sam, who had heard this a million times in various classes, news report, books, and other forms of explanation, was trying to make another point. Wow. So, this magic that people can use, some people like M can use it, was able to use it, or was able to master it pretty quickly. Same with Sam and Adam. But of course Sam doesn't like using magic. And I feel like M knows more about this veil than he lets to believe. Why only some spirits? Sam asked. M only looked at Sam, knowing there was another part of the question. And why do they have faces no one have ever seen? Finished Sam. The spirits that pass M's barrier have faces when they shouldn't, and and those impossible faces show up as non-digital database in the survival of the veil shattering shattering. And each night the face were always different, and the spirits always vanished before morning first light. M stopped for the moment, starting at something in the distance. Sam could never quite see Sam, all the veil's imperfection, and just left it as that. So M didn't know, and that excited Sam as much as it scared him. Wow. For the past several nights, Sam has been leaving through his bedroom window and photographing the faces of the spirits who crossed the barriers. Sam peered outside his window and into the forest, not a half mile away from the home. A dozen or more softly glowing lights moved through the trees like phantom fireflies. Tonight was going to be a good night, Sam thought to himself. The spirit never bothered Sam, and they only hardly uh, seemed bothered by his presence either. Another strange difference between these spirits and the ones Sam has become accustomed to. Sam found the relic from his past, hanging in the place of honor on his wall. A tattered wooden baseball bat that has somehow survived the explosion all those years ago. A signed signature of the entire 2021 Mothman team. Decorated it was the list of the dead. Sam pulled it out of his wall like a blade from the stone, and found reassurance when it grasped. It wouldn't be very effective against those odd spirits, but somehow he always made Sam feel safer, and so it always joined him in his nightly incursion. Wow. At the center of this forest was Point Pleasant's very own cryptid FM tower. Built at some point after the veil shattering, for whatever reason, radio's one of the few remaining technology method for long distance communication that was still effective, but even it's not completely immune to the influx of spiritual energies haunted the surrounding forest. Sam reading his thing ready his things as he listened to the soft crackle of the Cryptic Cast radio show, the volume lowered so Am doesn't suspect Am is still awake. I like how so in that picture that we've seen before of his bedroom, it's all there's a lot of cool like Easter eggs. We got the Bunny Man, we got the zoo, we got Dingbell, Mothman, a bunch of other things. Like his collection, the bat from his old middle school. The notes on the walls with like the red threads, pictures on some threads. His middle school team flag. What else is there? Backpack. And you could see like a radio tower in the distance in the forest. And I'm guessing these white lines in the foregrounds are the ghosts that he's talking about. At the center of the forest. Oh yeah, I already read that part. Oh boy, is anyone reading this? The announcer said in the exaggerated tone, tapping on the mic with must be his fingers. 1, 2, 3, testing. Haha. How's it going tonight, ladies and gentlemen and cryptics? This is Kyle, your lovely and dedicated host, coming to you live in the center of paranormal activity, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. A spooky theme song, undoubtedly created by a cryptic son, Kyle's son's, a budding musician of 15 that Sam has seen lurking in the hallways of school trying to sell cryptic cast merch, begin to fill Sam's room. The greatest apologies for the static. It seems like the station of its has its own fresh batch of groupies outside, working with the reception. Oh, he has like a little. So this is like from the radio, I guess. You can see something on the moon there. You can see the town of Point Pleasant there. You can see like the security camera. You can see all the equipments, and you can see right there. There's a little Fresno Nightcrawlers. I love these little Easter eggs. Sam opened the window, breathing the night air in deeply, and quietly began to descend. He also brought his hand radio with him to listening to cryptocasts as he himself went on the hunt in the surrounding forest was part of their recent ritual. Well, for those that can hear me, we got a lot to cover tonight. First up, we got another Mothman sighting. That's right, folks, our very own Point Pleasant mascot and the cause of the two most horrific events in city history. That bastard has been sighted 7 different times in many days over West Virginia. Sam moved quickly with purpose. After doing this for nearly 2 weeks, the half mile between his house and the edge of the forest passed in the blink of the eye. Tonight would be different. Tonight will be different. Once he has passed the street lights, the flickering even so often the same spiritual energies that made his radio crackle, Sam relaxed. He turned up the volume on his radio as it battles the fact that Sam was getting closer to both the source of the sighting, the source of the signal, and the interference. And later tonight, we'll join by Quimbo Professor Mothman Studies and Affair Professor Billinge. He would be phoned in, and I'm doing the air quotes, believe me, using a spell, so hopefully we won't get too much interference on his head. Before that, though, a quick word from our sponsor, Hodago's, a nutritious, all-natural breakfast cereal from the Frost with a real forest green. And what better way to wash down Hodagos than a second sponsor, Minio Soda. The code is BITH. Still only halfway at the edge of the forest, Sam stopped and almost tripped on over his own feet. The number of spirits that flitted between the trees has multiplied. Now it seems as though that there is hundreds, as if all the spirits have been slipping through the barriers in the previous week and then disappearing by morning, has converged at the same spot with a single purpose. And they were moving faster than he could ever see them move. It seems in unison. Sam scrambled to get his camera out. And then the night turned into day. Oh, what's gonna happen? Cryptic radio. And then cryptic radio, I should say cryptic radio off, cryptic radio on. Oh no. Where there was once a radio tower, now stood a pile of light extending from the center of the forest and into the sky. Sam shielded his eyes and only for a few moments realized that the spirits were flying into the pile as a source of energy. Before he saw it, the dead center of the pot of the pillar preached above the melting and now molten tip of the cryptid FM tower was Mothman. Despite the light surrounding it, Mothman somehow made the night darker, and from its perched set its set of red gaze upon Sam. Sam fell for somewhat seems like eons. He felt the same way he did in his worst dreams, when he could never outrun the faceless eyes that chased him. And in the living nightmare, Sam saw the explosion from 10 years ago and the people who burned alive all around him. He saw Adam and Rose leaving on their adventure hand in hand. He saw himself leaving his home that M has built for them, and M There alone in a dark doorway, Sam fell and fell. But then he was caught. Waking from the dream, Sam's eye took a moment to focus, and it was only later that Sam realized that he was covered in his own blood that was seeping out of his tear duct. But when he did, he saw it was Mr. M that caught him, still in his PJ pants, littered with a small cactus cat drinking martini. Cactus cat drinking martinis, and inexplicably still wearing the iconic dress shirt and tie. M had at some point covered the distance between their house and halfway of the edge of the forest. Sam, you're really not supposed to be past dusk. We discussed this. Yeah, really sorry about that, Em. Sam's throat felt as though it's been screaming for hours, and for all he knew, he had been. That's quite alright. You're okay? Are you hurt? True worries, the kind of worries that a painful parent, that are as painful to a parent. Sam felt a wave of guilt pass over him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put anyone in danger. I just wanted to. That's enough. It doesn't matter, Sam. Just focus on me, Em said with a stern voice. And then Sam remembered with a face almost calmly contorted by fear. Sam turned his head just enough to see the pillar of light and Mothman still there. Oh god, this is getting so good. Don't look at it, Sam. Look only at me. Clever. They use contract with spirits to change your energy signal enough to slip past the barriers. The crafty double even enveloped them in the veil, so they couldn't see just how many of them has actually slipped in. They're using spirits in the radio tower to create a focus point that would allow them to punch through. What are you talking about, Em? Let go. Let's get out of here. Sam was tired, very tired. He just wanted to wake up from this nightmare. Never mind all this, Sam. Just keep your eyes on me. And just as Em said that, Sam felt something wet dripping onto his face. It was Em's own blood mixing with Sam. Sam realized the horror that though the entire conversation, Em has not broken eye contact with Mothman. Not a single second. Impossible. Sam thought the thing looked at me once and I almost died. Still, Em maintained eye contact, gently placing Sam on the ground and threw his weight, and as though he weighted nothing at all, Sam scrambled and moved through what felt like molasses behind Em's towering figure. He had always been that tall. Em, in the voice that started to sound worried as Sam, but stronger as ever. You poor creature. I know whose signal that is. M moved his right hand out of his side, almost as though he was asking for a chance. The blooded spellbook appeared. Pages fluttered. Sam only ever seen it once before, and as he observed from the crowd, M putting Point Pleasant barrier in place. Most of the magic M did on a daily basis, regardless of complexity. Didn't require his spellbook. It was thicker than any spellbook Sam has ever seen. Filled to the brim was all things arcane and magical and powerful, or Sam's thought. Mothman screamed in a voice that came through the forest like dark wind surrounding torment and agony. Both humans and not as Sam's own scream mixed in, and Sam's blood became like ice and felt as everything happy in his life has never before happened. M's soft voice carried on the wind as well. It cut through the beastly shriek. Sam, he said, tearing a page out of his spellbook. Sam, I'm going to open the door behind you, and I want you to take this. And just as M finished saying this, Sam heard what sounds like an old wooden door creak behind him. But he was far too afraid and far too worried about M to look. And then M did something that Sam would never forget for the rest of his incredible life. M broke eye contact with Mothman, who immediately leaped from the perch, almost as though M was keeping him there. He turned to face Sam with a smile. Sam, you have a good heart and you're going to do amazing things. People in the world need you. You help them, please. Your journey will matter more than you know. And take this old book from me. I only need one last spell from it, M says, and laughed, holding the page of the spellbook as he torn out moments ago, waving it side to side. And then, almost playfully, M gave a little push, and Sam was once again falling. Before the chlordoses, before the darkness, as Sam was floating, continuing enveloping him, Sam saw the last moment of M's life. He saw M turn, still smiling, to face the Mothman, who now is only a few feet from the collision with the old man. He saw M lifted his hand with the spell book torn page, engulfs himself in an Eldritch green fire. He held M say in a friendly but final swore, I release you from your contract, old friend. Sam eye widened with surprise that he immediately shut in pain as the light from the explosion that would go on to wipe Point Pleasant and the door closed. Fuck. Jesus, this is... Oh, that's so sad. That is... well, wow, you're here. On an inaugural chapter of the official metazoo story. When we first decided that we needed to tell metazoo stories, our initial pitch was doing a comic series. We decided after much deliberating it was an insufferable medium for telling the stories. We needed to put word on paper and really explain the full depth and emotion of the characters we're feeling and the gravity and the events transpiring. This isn't the same comic or manga that... This isn't to say comic and manga cannot achieve the same goals, but I just felt like an illustrated chapter was the better way to tell metazoo stories. Here's the rub. I'm not a writer. I know what the story is because I spent very long time coming up with it, but manifesting the stories into words that are compiling into something I just have no experience with. But you know what? Who gives a damn? I'm going to learn how to write, and hopefully you all will join me in this journey. I will get better at it with practice. I promise you, in the immortal words of Doctor Strange, study and practice a lot of it. With that out of the way, what else is there to say? This isn't just an irregular in allegory chapter. It's really the month of first metazoo Cryptic Nation base set just released its Kickstarter print. People are already calling for a higher peak for restock of items that was almost sold out. It's been such an incredible journey to start this earnest last May 2020, and many of you have been there with me every step of the way. Many more to join at various points in time, leaping onto the release. Most of you have joined one recently. All of you have been instrumentally in making this success such that it is. And where do we go from here? We have much to do. Our ambition with metazoo is limitless. But we need not rush. The history of metazoo will be a long one, and one that we should cherish. It's been challenging but rewarding journey to get to the point. This will be the moment in memory that we remember years down the line that will be most special to us, and you're part of that. So thank you. Sincerely and happily yours, Michael.